Well, in this show, these characters could not possibly be anything other than black. It is intrinsically a part of this story, and I think that that is so fucking smart. What's up, you guys? This is Kevin Ortega-Rojas. I am a podcaster, content creator, and host. I have a show here on YouTube called Here's Why with Kevin Ortega-Rojas. I also co-host a podcast called By Latin Men, the podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at Kevin Ortega-Rojas. There I post social, political, and pop culture commentary. But that is enough of an intro, though, because we have to talk about Supacell. In this video, I want to give my thoughts on Supacell, the new show on Netflix. I want to talk about my thoughts on the show itself, and then I want to give my thoughts on the show being specifically about Black people and why that is so important and how well done I think that it really was and what the significance of it was. So let's get into it. So for those of you who do not know, Supacell is a show based in South London, and the show centers on a group of Black people who discover that they all have superpowers. Michael, who is the lead protagonist, discovers that they all have a shared destiny, and he goes on a mission to find the others so that he can save someone that he loves. I was trying to give that brief description without giving away many spoilers, but I should note there will be a ton of spoilers in this video, I'm pretty sure. I don't think that I can really give all my thoughts without spoiling the show, so if you haven't seen the show yet and you don't want it spoiled, stop this video and come back to it after you watch it. Last night, I started Supacell at about 8:30 p.m. I had kept hearing about it. I saw posts here and there, people talking about Supacell and saying how great it was, but I don't really watch superhero shows. It's just not something that's important to me. It's just not something that I gravitate toward. I don't really delve into sci-fi or anything like that. I enjoy dramas, but there's something really special about Supacell, which I will get into later, that made me really happy that I watched it. I started the show at around like 8:39 p.m. and I had finished it by 2:30 a.m. last night. So I was up super late watching the show, posting about it, and I was like, this is insane. So before I give my overall review of the show, let's delve into the characters. Michael is the lead protagonist. He has the powers to teleport and manipulate time. Sabrina has the power of telekinesis. Teo has the power of invisibility. Rodney has the power of super speed and self-healing. Andre has the power of super strength, and Crazy has the power to absorb other people's abilities. So when the show starts, you're introduced to the characters individually, and already from the beginning, I got the idea that this was going to be sort of like Heroes. For those of you who have watched Heroes in the early 2000s, Heroes was a show about, was that the 2010s? I'm old. Heroes was a show about random people all across the world who got superpowers and had to find each other. So immediately from the beginning, you know, I thought that the premise was pretty interesting because we were being introduced to characters via their individual storylines. And I knew that the show was going to be about supernatural abilities, was going to be about superpowers. I appreciated that the beginning of the show was not focused on powers. I don't think you see someone's abilities until you see a glimpse of something at the beginning, the very first opening scene that takes place over at the center. And then you don't really see anyone have powers, I think, until like 20 minutes into the show. So I appreciate that we got some character building right off the bat. So we get to meet all these different characters and the people in their lives and really get to know a bit about them, which helps make sense of the abilities that they end up getting later on in the show. Supacell was created, written, executive produced, and I believe 4 of the 6 episodes were directed by Rapman, who is a music artist based in the south of London, who also started directing TV and film, I believe back in like 2017, 2018. He said in a recent interview that he has been working on Supacell since the pandemic. He idealized it back in 2019, started working on it in 2020. I can't say enough good things about this show. It was so incredible. The acting was great, the writing was spectacular, the cinematography was incredible. I thought it was so beautiful and gritty and just really, really well executed. It really painted a picture of South London. I've never been to South London, but it really feels like you understand these people and where they are and what, you know, this area feels like. I thought that the CGI and the special effects were really top tier. I have so many good things to say about the show that I will list them off quickly because this is not a film or TV reaction channel. I will give you my pros and cons. So first, let's get into the pros. I posted a lot about this while I was watching it, and I was getting a lot of interactions from people. And one person said that they felt like the story had dragged on and that they really enjoyed the characters using their powers, their abilities, and they wished that they had done more of that. I have to disagree. I really appreciate that this was a story-driven show. Like I mentioned earlier, you were able to meet these characters without their abilities or without knowing about their abilities. You got to understand where they are in their lives and the people in their lives and what, you know, obstacles or struggles they were dealing with at that current time. So you were invested in the person and not their abilities. If you're someone who watches these kind of shows for the action, for the quickness and the special effects, and you just want to see all of like the cool stuff, I can understand that sentiment. For me though, I felt like every scene in the show really gave an adequate amount of time to the characters to explore their feelings. Nothing felt rushed. Nothing felt like a scene got chopped up to make time for, you know, the next fight scene or the next sequence. It felt like characters were allowed to feel their feelings, and I don't know a better way to describe that, so I hope that that makes sense. But I felt like you were really watching people process their feelings in real time. It didn't feel like it was cut short for the sake of time run. I love that this show is love focused. Yes, it is about people with super abilities. It is about, at the end of the day, most shows are about like good and evil and all of this, but at the heart of this show, it's about love. It's about people who are trying to save love. It is about people who are suffering from losing love, from losing parents, from losing friends. I love that everyone in this show has some sort of love at stake or has experienced some sort of loss of love, and that is what drives the characters. I love that the show is protagonist focused. Why did I say that? What does that mean? Oh, I saw a YouTuber who said that they wished that the show gave more airtime to the antagonists and gave us more background on who the quote-unquote bad guys were and why they were doing what they were doing. I actually appreciated that the antagonists were barely in the show. We saw them here and there, but I don't think that the antagonists had any lines for the first like 2 episodes. They didn't say anything. We just saw them. I really, really appreciated that. I'm gonna be honest, one, because I wanted to see a show about Black people, and so I and so I made a joke and I was like, wow, they really didn't let these white people speak once. But you know, it is what it is. I really appreciate that the show allowed us to invest in the protagonist instead of just building up these, you know, antagonists. Because at the end of the day, the bad guy's always like, I'm a bad guy. I'm doing things because power. You know, like, do I really? I don't care. I don't care. All right. On to the cons. Okay, so I have 2 major cons with the show: the gangs and Andre. I was born and raised in poverty. I am very familiar with the streets and with gang life, at least here, right? And so to me, I'm gonna be honest, I really, really despised sorry. If for some reason Ratman finds this video, I love this show. So I don't want to give any cons, but I have to be honest, I really did not enjoy the scenes with the gang members as much. The first 4 episodes of the show, all of the like gang scenes were centered around Teo and the Tower Boys and all of, you know, those like younger gang members, right? Eventually the show lets us know that Teo and his friends who are in a gang, that they're in over their head. They're young, they're immature, they don't really know what they're doing, they're not thinking clearly, and they're not really about this life. I get that. I understand that that was the story. I like that when the show contrasted Teo, who's this young gang member, with Crazy, who is a real gang member who just came out of prison, who leads the charge, who has a lot of power and authority. When they bring these two characters together, I really appreciated that, and being able to witness, Teo's realization that he's in over his head. My issue with the younger gang members is that for those first 3 or 4 episodes where it's just them, and so we don't have the contrast of a Crazy, of the real big dogs, we don't really see them. When we're spending all this time with the Tower Boys and they're, riding around on their bikes and their scooters with pocket knives, the show doesn't come across to me like we, the audience, are supposed to look at them the way that I was looking at them. Like, me and my best friend were watching the show and we were like, these kids are dumb. Like, these kids are not smart. These kids are clearly not that hood. They're just angry. And they have some knives on them. But like, they're not gangbangers. Like, they're not real. They're not hood. And so I was like, these kids are kind of dumb, right? Like, this feels dumb watching this. My issue with it, though, was that the show seemed convinced of their hardness, of their toughness. So it didn't seem like we were watching kids who we were supposed to be thinking, yo, you're in over your head. It seemed like we were supposed to be watching these kids and believing that they were hard gang bangers, right? And I think that was sort of a pain point for me, because every time these kids came on the screen, I was like, oh my God, not again. I do appreciate that eventually we got the introduction of Crazy and, the real big dogs on the streets, and there were real stakes involved. It made that make a lot more sense. Andre. I liked Andre. Andre is a single dad. He is an ex-convict who is struggling because he can't find work because he was incarcerated. And so he is struggling to get a job and get back on his feet. He's trying to spend time with his teenage son, who he wants to be able to raise properly, get him away from the streets, get him away from, gang life. He gets the power of super strength. And I feel like a lot of really bad things happen to Andre, who's really just trying to survive. But I felt like he was an underutilized character. I actually feel like a lot of the time that we spent with Teo and the gang scenes, a lot of that could have been chopped down and given to Andre. Because even Andre's, relationship with his son AJ, the way that shifts in the 5th or 6th episode, I thought was really fast. We were left without a lot of explanation or screen time. A lot of things happened off screen. That to me was kind of a bummer. I really liked Andre. I wish that we had gotten more time with him. I thought his story was really interesting. I get why Andre was never introduced as like part of the group until the very end of the season, because he needed to buy into the idea that the rest of them were dangerous and he should join the center and, be able to reap the benefits of what they were offering him, because he was being blackmailed. So I get why he wasn't introduced as part of the group, and maybe because we had to spend more time with them, that screen time was taken away. But I just think more could have been done with Andre, and I kind of, felt bad for that character. So those are my pros and cons on the show. Obviously, there are a lot more pros than cons, and I think that you should watch it if you haven't already. Now I want to talk about why this show, I think, is so important, significant, and well done. This show could not exist without Black people. And that is so refreshing. After all of the backlash for casting, The Little Mermaid with Halle Bailey, and for casting a Black actor as Captain America, vampires can't be Black, and mermaids can't be Black, and aliens can't be Black. And it's like, okay, like what can Black people do? These fictional characters couldn't possibly be Black, right? Well, in this show, these characters could not possibly be anything other than Black. It is intrinsically a part of this story, and I think that is so fucking smart. It's revealed later in the show that the people who are developing super abilities have a Supacell gene mutation, which comes from the sickle cell gene mutation. So it's revealed that all of the characters, one of their parents at some point had sickle cell disease, and that is what they inherited. They inherited Supacell. And I thought that this was such a genius way to bring awareness to the fact that sickle cell disease predominantly impacts Black people. And by predominantly, I don't mean just, a slim majority. I mean more than 94% of cases of sickle cell disease are in black people. Black people die from sickle cell disease every year. Here in the US, 1 in every 365 black people has sickle cell disease. That is insane. So I was watching this interview with Ratman where he was explaining how he decided to use sickle cell as the catalyst for these people developing superpowers.
And I wanted to do something to uplift black people, and I knew a girl always in hospital. Every couple of weeks she's in hospital, all the time. I remember saying, why are you always in hospital? She's like, I got sickle cell. And the only time I heard sickle cell before that was when Tupac was dissing Mobb Deep, bruv. So I'm just thinking, right, she broke it down to me.
Sorry, I'm going mad.
And it was deep. I was like, and I went down a rabbit hole with it. Like, why is there a disease that mainly affects black people? I just never understood it. I said, you know what, imagine something though that, yeah, you live with it and it can hurt you, but it means your children will be extraordinary. So I remember thinking, yeah, that's gonna be the power. That's where it's gonna come from. And I just thought, sickle cell, supercell. It's like the wordplay.
I thought that was just such a genius take. I thought that it was so smart. I thought that it was so poignant and powerful and beautiful. It feels like he sort of personified the idea of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. To take that and turn it into something of strength and beauty, I just thought was irreverent. I just thought that it was so well done. I also appreciate how this story explores black stereotypes. We have, you know, the angry black woman, we have the gangbangers, we have the incarcerated father, all of these black stereotypes that I think TV and film usually touch on, but these stories are really explored. We get to see what happens in real people's lives when they suffer from these scenarios, when they suffer from these situations. We get to see what happens to the convicted felon who was incarcerated, you know, unjustly, and he has to be locked away, and the son that he wanted to raise properly is now falling into the hands of, you know, the streets. And we get to see what happens to a mother who runs away to protect her son. This show did a really great job at exploring stereotypical black stories in a way that humanizes people. I know that when we're making TV and film about minority characters and we explore or introduce certain stereotypes, that can feel exhausting sometimes, to be like, do we really have to see this again? Do we really have to always talk about this? But I think it becomes exhausting because it feels fruitless. It's done just for shock value most of the time, or it's done because it's the easiest thing to do, right? If you're gonna write a Mexican character, the easiest thing that you can do is to say that they're an immigrant. Stereotypes exist because they're rooted in truth, right? When we see these stereotypical characters without being able to explore them fully, it does nothing to move the needle. But I think that this show did such a good job at taking these stereotypes and exploring them and unpacking them and letting us really live with these people. I'm so invested in these characters. So should this show get a season 2? Yes, but I worry that with the show gaining popularity and people talking about it and Netflix seeing how loved it is, I worry that Netflix will ruin a good thing. So I just want to say, Netflix, please don't touch this show. Greenlight it for a second season. Give Ratman his budget and let that man cook. Do not interfere with this man's vision, because clearly he has one, and I want to see what Ratman wants this show to be. I don't want anyone else putting their hands in it. So that is my only hope. If this show gets a season 2, just let that man cook. Do not let anyone else in. Please don't ruin this show. Please don't ruin this show. All right, guys, that is all the time I have for this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Did you watch Supacell yet? If you did, what were your takeaways? What were your thoughts? Who were your favorite characters? What do you want to see in a season 2? Drop that in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate all of the ongoing support. I'm still new to this YouTube thing, and so I'm throwing a lot at the wall and seeing what sticks, and I appreciate everyone who's been engaging with me so far and sticking around and watching my videos. It means a lot because I'm having fun, so I'm glad to have you here, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care. Love you. Bye.